Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Stunning Steve Barber, and joining me as my awesome co-host is the intellectual rock star himself, Delicious Dwaylon Davis.
Hey, everybody.
And as you can tell, if you're watching on YouTube, I have a new background, sort of. What I did was I just redid my office, and so you see my collection of Rubik's cubes and other kind of twisty mechanical puzzles that are like that, like the Pyraminx and the Missing Link and some other kind of puzzles. They're all sitting there right behind me.
hmm
Yep. So there's about 300 of them there total.
Wow.
So yeah. And if you can see, I also have both the belts there. And I'm going. There's still kind of a work in progress, um, but today we are going to have kind of a sad episode, but at the same time, we're going to have this actually, what they call a celebration of somebody's life.
Yep.
Because yeah, you had texted me earlier today and gave us news or gave me the news that the Iron Sheik passed away this morning.
Yep. Yeah, I got
And
a notification from Russell Zone on Twitter, and they had the headline up that he had passed today.
right at the time I saw your text, and I saw I had been tagged in a Facebook post from
hmm
Kyle.
Yeah,
Same
same
thing,
here.
So um, and I saw you'd actually given it a like, or
hmm
not really a like, but an
Yeah,
emotion, whatever they call it now. But
yeah,
um, and so I'm like, well, if Kyle and Whalen both are telling me, then I know this is not just a bad rumor. And then it started going everywhere
yeah,
and WWE, and I've actually retweeted it now.
yeah.
So
I wouldn't have believed it initially if it wasn't for that. If it wasn't for the fact that it came from Russell Zone because they're pretty reputable. So,
I
so I always if it comes from Russell Zone or What Culture Wrestling or Cultaholic things like that, then I believe I believe it to be true because they always do their research first before they put anything out. So
and when I'm sitting there reading, I mean, I knew he was a pretty interesting person outside the ring, because if you followed his Twitter, you already knew
oh yeah,
that.
his Twitter was fantastic. I am definitely going to miss his Twitter account because I followed it and it was fantastic. And his love for Hulk Hogan, we'll say, is
Yeah,
was the best part of Twitter. It was
yeah,
like
his love.
his
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. If you see me on video, you see the air quotes.
yes,
Yeah, actually, he despised Hulk Hogan and
and
had
was
no
not a.
problem telling people why. So
And we can't repeat the things that he was saying about Hulk Hogan on the show.
no,
Uh, well, there was one I actually showed my daughter, because somewhere somebody has actually has a screenshot of about 8 of the Sheik's best tweets, and
hmm
one of them says "Happy Thanksgiving" to everybody except Hulk Hogan.
yeah, yeah, that was great.
Yep. Um, and he just for well, we can get into that as the show goes on about why he developed this absolute legitimate hatred for
Oh yeah,
Terry Bollea, also known as Hulk Hogan, because it wasn't always like that. And so,
no, no, it wasn't.
but I also want to give before we get started on that, I want to give your latest podcast episode, the Intellectual Rockstar. I just want to give that one a shout out. I literally
Thank you.
listened to it about uh 20-30 minutes ago. I finished listening to it. I was able to. In
Right.
fact, yeah, in fact, you logged on, and I was still
Yeah,
listening
you
to
were still listening
it.
to it. Yeah. You're like,
Because
hold
I
on, I'm almost done.
yeah, and because this has been when I saw it, because you dropped it actually yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah, because things have been pretty hectic with, we started the food truck and we've been
Right.
busy with that and just, life gets busy. So I
Yeah.
had to ended up taking a little hiatus. It wasn't planned, but it just kind of happened. But yeah, I wanted to try to get back on schedule. So I didn't get to record Monday. So yesterday I dropped one that morning. Yeah.
Okay. Because I remember seeing it coming in, but I didn't listen to like any podcast yesterday. because I've been busy studying for my life insurance license, which I will finally be going and taking that test tomorrow afternoon.
Awesome.
You
Good
know,
luck.
so any any kind of thoughts, prayers, positive vibes, anything you could throw my way, please do. Um, because I've already paid for the test, and so but now I will get reimbursed once I pass.
Yeah.
But that's for the side thing I've had going now for a year that I wasn't able to really get going because of all the hours I was devoting to my actual job.
Hmm.
And because I was doing so many hours that there were some times we couldn't even record this podcast or my other podcast, the Cubicle Chat.
Yeah. Yep.
So finally able to knock that out. Been because you take practice exams, and I was there's 7 chapters that you actually test on, and I got to where I actually knocked past all of them with hundreds because I wanted to get to that
Awesome.
point.
Yeah.
So is that because when you're taking a test, nerves will kick in no matter how good
Oh
of a
yeah,
test taker you
absolutely.
are. So and so you just want to kind of account for that. But I'll be doing that tomorrow, and so did took care of all that today, registering and finally I was like, all right, let me go listen to the podcast. And I was like, what do you need now? Um, for my son and my daughter, and just trying to take care of those things. And then my dad's calling, and I set up another um interview. My dad was letting me he gave me a name to talk to a guy about a potential job that I could do remotely.
Hmm.
And so I was taking care of that. And I was like, all right, intellectual rockstar. It's like, what now? So what do you mean we got to eat? Up,
Yeah, it's like
whatever.
what's that?
Yeah.
Why do we got to do that?
Yeah. So, finally I was like, all right, let me sit down. And I looked at the time, and it was like 8 o'clock. So I was like, all right, put it on there, skip through the ads real quick, make sure I caught yours at the very beginning. And then I learned that poison ivy will flat out kill you if she kisses you.
Oh yeah, yep. Toxic kiss.
So if that ain't like one of the best finishing moves, I don't.
Yeah.
So if you're dating a woman and she says her last name is Ivy, now that's a real last name. I actually know some people with the last name Ivy.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I do too.
So but if she says she's legitimate saying her first name is Poison, don't let her
Yeah, it's
kiss
like
you.
run. It's like
Yeah,
run. You better go.
yeah, and she said, "Oh, you got a boo boo on your hand. Let me kiss that." Your hand will fall
Nah.
off.
Yeah.
So just get out of there because
Yeah.
and of course when I saw Poison Ivy, as the title, I was definitely assuming it was not the song by Faster Pussycat. Remember that song?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is an excellent song, by the way.
Yeah.
But
So in fact, I think Faster Pussycat, I think they're actually on this shirt that I'm wearing somewhere. For those of you who are audio only, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt with a whole bunch of band names on it, and a lot of them are hair bands. Of course, some of them are classic rock bands.
yeah, I see Europe.
Yep, Europe's on there. Um, Scorpions, Pearl Jam. Like so, I mean that's what I'm saying. It's kind of a mixture.
Yeah.
I would never consider the Scorpions to be a hair band. Um, I don't care if they are
Nah.
played on Hair Nation.
Nah.
So, but yeah, definitely go check out William Show, the intellectual rock star. He's back at it, telling you all about Batman's villains, the people that are trying to kill Batman.
Yeah. Once I finish that series, which there's still quite a few villains to go through, but once I finish that, I have some other ideas, like which I'm gonna stir the pot some and because there's one where I'm gonna discuss why I think the Razor Crest is a superior Star Wars vehicle to the Millennium Falcon.
Ooh, ooh,
Yeah.
yeah, you're trying to start some stuff, aren't you? Like our friend James.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like James, what do you think? What can I do to just make everybody mad at me?
It's like, hey, I got to get people talking.
Yeah. Okay, everybody's talking about me. You know.
Yeah.
Oh wow, the other Razor Quest, and I was hoping you'd go to like Spider-Man villains. You know,
I could still do that.
at some point. I mean,
There's
if you go from Batman to
yes.
Spider-Man villains, though, that's kind of like too close to each other. I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a little gap in between, discuss maybe some Star Wars stuff and maybe even Star Trek: The Next Generation because that's the only Star Trek that I liked.
Oh, One of the shows you'll have to have me, not Star Trek one. I don't know, diddly about any of the Star Trek
Yeah,
stuff. Um, but yeah, Star Wars, yeah, I'll definitely be on
yeah,
there.
yeah.
So
Definitely got to have you on. Yeah, we got to do
oh yeah,
that soon.
yep. So and by the way, another reason I had to have this back here because I'm trying to out nerd Dwaylen apparently. So having 300 Rubik's cubes and other mechanical twisty puzzles,
Yeah,
definitely got
you
some
can't
nerd
see
cred.
mine, but I've got, I don't know, maybe 100 Funko Pops, different designs and stuff, and
Oh, that'd be my son's room.
superhero statues and Thor's hammer, and
Look, I got the Ultimate Warrior. I got Chewbacca.
yeah,
I got
yeah,
you know the Mandalorian. So I don't know if you can really see those, but
yeah,
kind of far back. But okay. Um, but anyway, so if you look at up above my head, you may see there's some Star Wars
yeah.
heads. They're cubes. I
Yeah, I
have
see them.
a couple of Darth Mauls, and then like the little bitty ones which came from Canada. Yeah.
Hmm.
Speaking of Canada, who else comes from Canada? BC Hunter.
That's BC Hunter. That's right.
BC Hunter and Jay Myers. Hopefully Jay, hopefully you're doing all right, my friend. Hopefully you'll be able to come back soon. But BC, he has been manning that by himself for a little bit, doing a great job wrestling with the truth or wrestling with the war. And plus his YouTube channels, he's doing a fantastic job. But I have to ask him, BC, if you're listening to this, let me know if you know all about these particular Rubik's cubes that are kind of above my head if you're watching on YouTube. Because apparently when they were out in Canada, they actually came in cereal boxes.
Hmm,
Yeah,
cool.
so and I'll have to do a show on the cubicle chat all about the cubes.
Hmm.
And who else gives me good feedback? Same person gives you good feedback, and that'd be
Ted.
Ted. Ted the
Yep.
Hillbilly Hill. Go check out the Hill Truth, and because he definitely drops some wisdom. He is all about the heels, but that doesn't mean he's a bad guy. He's actually probably one of
Exactly.
yeah. He probably one of the goodest good guys, the best good guys that you'd ever meet. Talking about bad guys.
Yep.
And speaking of, I still need to reach out, and I said I was going to do this yesterday. I'll do it while we're talking right now. The Finish Your Wrestling podcast. They are absolutely doing great. We're trying to arrange something so they can actually come on our show and we can come on theirs. And so while we were talking, I am actually going to uh, send a message to him because if I don't do it now, I would totally forget. Um, see what time is good for you on the day that we were talking about. All right, cool. And I'll see if he answers while we're doing this. So,
Right.
and let's see, is there anybody else I'm missing shouting out? I'm definitely going to shout out Kyle because he's been sending me some pretty good suggestions for the cubicle chat.
Hmm.
And actually, um, Kyle had sent me an email, and had we had I don't remember what I was going on because I meant to read them um on the air, but he actually had a question, and part of that um where's it at? Where's it at? Because it keeps getting replaced by other um, emails, unfortunately. And so it fell down to the bottom, and there it is. It was actually one that I forwarded to you as well. And he sent this, and I apologize once again, Kyle. He sent this almost 2 months ago now. But I do think these are still valid questions. He said two questions on his glorious Tuesday evening when he sent the show. Outside of Rhea Ripley, does the Judgment Day win matches? They lost last night. I don't recall when Finn Balor won a match last, and Dom is healing up, but neither of you wins to be anything. Can you book them out of being the new job squad? It's like, you know what? He has kind of a point.
He has kind of a point. I mean, Damian Priest had a world heavyweight title match on Raw this past Monday. Of course, he lost because they're not going to take it off Seth. And then Finn and Seth had a they were staring at each other as the show went off the air. So I think that's going to be Seth's next title feud is with Seth. Um, from what I've read, the management is very high on Damian Priest and are wanting him to be a main event guy, which I don't have any problem with it.
Oh yeah, I could back that up easily.
I mean, he's pretty good on I mean, he's decent enough on the mic. He's good in the ring, got a good look, good presentation, you know, carries himself like a star, you know,
Hmm.
looks like one. I mean, especially after he carried Bad Bunny to that excellent street fight at
Yes,
Backlash, you know, he really got in management's good graces then because they knew he could be like a ring general if, you know, type thing. So I wish they would just go ahead and say Rhea's the leader of the group because she is by far
oh
the
easily.
star of that group.
Yes.
Even before she was a champion, she was still by far the most important member of that group. That group would not be as effective as a heel stable without Rhea.
And you know what?
And
I just
they're already building some tension between Priest and Balor
hmm
because of when they were going back and forth with Seth. You know, he was when Priest said, you know, I don't need Rhea, I don't need Dom, I don't need Finn to help me beat you. And Finn's looking at him like, you know, you can't win without me. So it's like they're kind of sowing the seeds, but it's like the only person I see that suffers if they end up breaking up the Judgment Day is Finn Balor. Finn Balor will get lost in the shuffle because that's what they
Yep.
do with Finn whenever he's not in NXT. If he's on the main roster, he ends up getting lost in the shuffle in the mid card because Vince doesn't view him as a main event guy because he's too small. Um, but Priest will end up being a main eventer. Uh, Rhea's just scratching the surface of what she can do. Dom is fantastic in the sniveling heel role. So, but his to answer his question, yeah, pretty much. Besides Rhea, yeah, they are. Besides Rhea and Dom to an extent because Rhea helps Don win
Because
matches.
yeah,
Dom, yeah. So, but Priest and Finn, yeah, they're kind of job squad status right now. They're kind of like jobbers to the stars. I mean, they'll give you a great match. They'll make whoever they're in the ring with look excellent, but they're not going to win it.
sadly it sounds like they're jobbers to the main event stars,
Yes, yeah,
which is
not the mid card stars.
that's a weird
It's a little
position to
bit.
be in.
It's a weird position to be in. It's a little bit better than being jobber to the mid card, but you're still jobbing nonetheless. When you're losing more than you're winning, it doesn't make you look good.
And yes, I will always say wins and losses do matter to a
Yes,
certain extent because
yeah. I
because
mean, yeah, because it's like if wins and losses don't matter, then it's like they're going to do what they did with Jinder Mahal. Nothing against
mhm,
Jinder. I actually personally, besides the stupid stuff they were giving him to say on the mic,
yes,
I actually didn't mind Jinder Mahal as WWE champion. He looked the part. He
great
carried
look.
himself like a
Yep.
champion. You know, he conducted himself, you know, like a champion. It's not his fault he was given crap creative to work with. He did the best he could with what he was given. The problem is nobody accepted him as champion because he was a job guy. And then all of a sudden, he gets shot to the main event and wins the title because they're trying to get, they're trying to get a foothold in India.
Yep.
You know, if they'd have built him up over months and months to be the next challenger, then that's one thing. But he can't be jobbing out on Raw this month, and then the next month he becomes the number one contender for the WWE title. It's like, yeah, nah,
Yeah. Too much too soon.
yeah, exactly,
So,
and yeah,
and the other question Kyle had and or comment said, hopefully you followed Jordan Grace and her work and impact. Incredible power lifter, just won a bodybuilding show with allegedly a millionaire muscle mommy on her private website, but now a free agent. I think should be a perfect candidate to be a female Rick Rude character. Do you think he said mostly do you recall the inbred Ohio yokels, a bunch of sweat hogs? Kyle's a Michigan fan. I don't know if you knew that or not.
yeah, yeah, I know.
So, could this work in today's soft climate and get over in WWE or AEW? Like, Ooh,
Um,
that's a very interesting.
right now, I
No.
honestly, if she's not gonna, her contract's up in Impact, like he said, she's a free agent. Um, I think she'd be better suited for AEW with her style. I think she'd be better suited going to AEW or going to Japan.
Um,
I don't think WWE would use her to her because she's great. She's an excellent professional wrestler, but I think they'd use her more for her look than they would for her skill, especially if they drop her on the main roster and not put her through NXT first.
now, do you think she would do a character like a Rick Rude where he's telling everybody to shut up while he's showing his, or while she's showing her muscles?
No, she's played heel before, but it was more of a she's a big fan of Scott Steiner. That's where she got the
Okay.
thick mama pump thing was a playoff, Big Papa Pump. She's a big fan of Scott Steiner. They even had like a 6-man tag in Impact one time. It was Petey Williams when he was doing the Canadian muscle gimmick where he was like a mini Scott Steiner. He had Petey Williams, Jordan Grace, and Scott Steiner. All of them came out with the chainmail headgear on and everything. So I think she would do more of like Scott Steiner if she was a heel
Okay.
than not fly off the handle like Scott Steiner, but more of that type of intensity than the you know perpetual cool Rick Rude. Rick Rude was all I always loved Rick Rude. He was one of the coolest because it's like other than Jake Roberts, nothing phased nothing
No, he
phased
didn't.
him.
Yeah. And they said Rick Rude was one of the people, the most legit tough guys,
Oh
and
yeah,
really didn't want to mess
yes,
with him.
yeah. And they're like, if there was a problem in the locker room, especially guys, younger guys that didn't want to listen, they're like, you can go talk to Rick Rude, and they're like, no, no, that's okay. His
Um,
reputation definitely preceded it.
yeah. And so, and Kyle had also sent me a text, and he wanted me to. And I was going to get this in because we were doing interviews, and so this was during this. He sent this while we were in the middle of doing all the interviews
Mm-hmm.
for the NWF for Revolution Rising, and so I couldn't find the time to sneak it in there. But he said
Mm-hmm.
he wants me to let you know, Batman wakes up early on Saturday to watch Saturday morning cartoons of Kyle. So there you go.
There you go.
But I mean, he's got a point. I mean,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
um, but yeah, so but yeah, Kyle's always given us good suggestions. Like I said, I apologize because he sent that email, a couple months ago, and then he's like, "Hey man, why do you want me to have people send you emails when you don't read them?" And then I'd like, "Oh crap, that's right," because
yeah,
I need to actually kill off because of the TikTok channel that we have. It still sends emails. Oh, this one you did.
yeah,
And I'm like, I don't care that.
yeah. I've got to cut that off too because I get a lot of TikTok
Yeah,
emails, and it's like I can just get on TikTok and see the stuff I want to see, so I don't need the email, suggestions. And
right. And one of the people that has said is sending me, or it's made a new video, is our friend Big Fat.
yeah, yeah,
you know, and I'm like, I know he made a video.
yeah.
His birthday was a couple days ago.
I,
He turned
I
50.
know he made a video. I have the notification turned on his TikTok
Yes.
channel so that it pops up. Well, I get a notification when he drops a new video. So
Yeah. So it had pushed Kyle's email like way down. And so I had
yeah,
totally forgotten about it. And then I was like, oh, and I felt like crud. So but now trying to make up for it. And because he had two very good points, he even asked me, he said, well, do you think the points are still valid? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because I think those are both two very valid questions.
hmm,
So um but we do have to go ahead and move on because I'm trying to think of anybody else we give shout outs to right now. Am I missing?
no, I don't think so.
Right. So, and I will say, I think I'll speak for Joel, and also we want to apologize for not having episodes out the past couple of days. We both had stuff kind of hit last minute. Um,
Hmm.
And I'll laugh at yours because Dwellin's case, it was Cracker Barrel being really slow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really slow. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
he didn't get home till like over an hour after we normally record. And by that point, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, time to go to bed. You know, so
Hmm.
um, but we're back on tonight, and looks like we'll have. I'll send you a screenshot of the message I just got from Finisher Wrestling, and so you can see, so we can kind of set that up. So, but in the meantime, like we were saying at the beginning of the show, and it's very unfortunate news, but the man born Hussein Khosrow Ali Vaziri. Um,
I saw that and I was going to let you pronounce that because I figured you'd do a better job of it than me. So,
uh, this is what happens when you live with somebody who can speak Arabic and then work with people later on in life who can also speak
exactly.
Arabic.
Exactly.
And actually, in this case, it's not just Arabic; it's Persian Farsi. But as far as like the
Hmm.
pronunciations, they're very, very close.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, also known as the Iron Sheik.
Yep.
He was born March 15th, 1942, and just passed away today. And you want to talk about, like I said, I mean, his outside the ring work or ring stuff, his
Hmm.
was just as interesting as what he did in the ring, because a lot of
Yeah.
times you don't see that,
Right.
so um but when you look at his background, he was born in a very, very poor family, working class family, little money, no running water.
Mm.
Yeah, which I mean, I know that was more common back. This would have been in the 40s and 50s, even, and it is in Iran. Um, but it's not like Iran was always like a poor country. In fact, Iran has not
Right.
really been known as a poor country. But I mean, very working class. And um, now his passport said March 15th. He actually celebrated his birthday on September 9th.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a weird. I was like,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah. It's
But
weird. Yeah.
yeah, but his family would alternate between the Gregorian calendar and the solar. Okay, I can't pronounce every word. Um, solar Hijri calendar, which I'll have to. Just said the message failed to send to you. By the way, I may have to send it to you through Facebook Messenger.
Okay.
Um, let's see. The solar Hijri calendar is a solar calendar, one of the various Iranian calendars. Begins on the. Okay, okay. It's a different calendar that they use in Iran. So, but um, he idolized Iranian Olympic gold medal winning wrestler. What do you got to have me pronounce these?
Because I cannot, and you have more experience. You have more experience with pronouncing Arabic than I do. So
Golem Retsa Pak Pakti.
I actually have no experience speaking Arabic, and you, between the two, you have all the experience. So,
I just know how to pronounce his first name of Hussein because of a young man who I met. He was a dental tech. He was actually in the Air Force,
oh, okay.
and yep, and because I was, he was working on my teeth, and I noticed, he had kind of an accent, so I just asked him, hey, dude, where you from? He's like, and this was in 2003. He said, the most
Hmm.
dangerous place in the world right now, Iraq. And
Mm.
so, we got to talking. I love talking to people, that.
Hmm.
Um, especially if I find out they're definitely from somewhere, not from where I'm from, somewhere across the world. So just talking with him, and he was actually telling me the name. Of course, we always say Hussein because we see that's the way it's spelled.
Hmm.
And he said it was actually pronounced Hussein. He said because
Mm.
there is no equivalent to the sound.
Right.
That's where the HU came
Hmm.
from. So it's like, oh, so I learned something cool.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, he was waiting to this kid. He actually he was a dental tech. He was enlisted as a dental tech, waiting to get his citizenship because he was going to become an officer. That's what his
Oh,
goal
okay.
was.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I really because he seemed like he was a pretty cool guy, pretty nice guy, smart. Because being a dental tech is not the easiest thing in the world.
Mm-mm.
Um, so uh, now I'm kind of wondering that was 20 years ago, and I'm trying to remember. but um, but yeah, he at one point was a bodyguard for the Shah of Iran.
Mm.
You know, he competed for a spot on Iran's Greco-Roman wrestling team for the '68 Summer Olympics in Mexico City or Ciudad de Mexico. There you go. We'll just keep switching languages.
Yeah, there you go.
Although Mr. Faulkner would probably slap me for the way I just pronounced that, but
Oh
um,
yeah, definitely.
then he moved to the U.S., became the assistant coach of two U.S. Olympic squads in the '70s, which will have to default to '72 and '76. So I don't know why they
Yeah.
I couldn't just say that because there was only, but yeah, it mentioned he was the assistant coach um, to the '72 Olympic Games in Munich. Okay, that's a poorly written article the way they did that. But anyway, so after all that, he was invited to become a professional wrestler by Vern Gagne. That makes
Hmm.
sense because Vern
Yeah,
Gagne also we covered Vern Gagne about a year and a half ago,
I think
and
so. Sounds
yeah,
about right.
it's in the archives. And if anybody you go look at our archives, you can actually see that we have to discuss uh, Vern Gagne and 48 Olympic Games. He was an alternate for the freestyle wrestling team at the 1948 Olympic Games. So Vern Gagne, as soon as he saw Khosrow, that's what everybody called him was Khosrow. They didn't actually. He always went by his middle name.
Hmm.
They always called him Khosrow, or heard a lot of people just refer to him as Kaz.
Right.
When they talk about, hey, Kaz was there, da, 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 but it would make sense because Vern Gagne probably saw him and went, yes, because
Yeah.
that's what Vern Gagne loved seeing was great amateur wrestlers that he could,
Yes.
because that's what he did.
Yeah.
And so he trained under Vern Gagne. He was there training alongside Ric Flair. And also, it doesn't mention this, but at the same time, there was a Bob Remus who later on became Sergeant Slaughter.
Hmm.
They trained together, and of course, down the road,
Yeah.
they had some of the nastiest
Oh yeah.
feuds.
Which was funny because they had this bitter feud, and then when Slaughter was WWF champion, the
Yeah,
Iron Sheik was in his corner, and it's like,
yeah,
okay,
that's right, because he was Colonel Mustafa.
yep, yep, because there was General Adnan and Colonel Mustafa.
And the wild thing about that, Adnan Al-Kaisi, he was another legitimate, because he came from Iraq. He came
Hmm.
from Iraq. And the reason why he fled was because Saddam Hussein was getting jealous of him,
Hmm.
like for real. And that's a true story, ladies and gentlemen. Go check that out. Um, Adnan Al-Kaisi, he actually fled Iraq because of Saddam Hussein, because Adnan Al-Kaisi was becoming very popular. He was a wrestler over there, and
Hmm.
Saddam Hussein was like, no, 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 I'm the only person here.
Yeah.
So he was probably going to kill him just because of
Oh
jealousy,
yeah. Yep.
and so dude left, and I don't blame him. So
Don't either.
yeah, um, and later on, he was actually a face when he first started wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that, and it's funny, like because most of his career he was a heel, and it's funny to think that he was a face starting out, in the early days. But um, I think he really hit his stride more as a villain.
Oh yeah,
I kind of hate that they use the old, you know, foreign villain trope, that they do. If you're not from America, you're automatically the bad guy. So, but
well
he made it.
back then it was just kind of the with the Cold War and everything going on,
Yeah.
and with him actually. they did it right as the revolution happened in Iran.
Hmm.
And so that one, and he relished in it. He walked out,
Oh yeah, you could tell he loved playing the heel. You could
yeah,
tell um, he was involved in WrestleMania one. Him and Nikolai Volkov won the tag titles at WrestleMania one. Um, he before that, of course, he ended Bob Backlund's reign as WWF champion. He was kind of the stopgap to get
he
the
was
belt
he
off
was the
Backlund.
he was the transitional
He's the
champion.
transitional champion, but I mean, he made the best of it, and you know, he won the title, and because he had Backlund in the clutch, and the towel got thrown in, and Backlund never gave up, but the towel got thrown in, so the Sheik was the champion. And then, of course, he lost it to Hogan, and we know how that went. But
And
he is he is a Hall of Famer, which deservedly so.
what a,
He's, to
one
my knowledge, he is the only Iranian WWF champion.
yeah, I think that's an easy one to say.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
and because there's not even been any. I mean, there was somebody who played a Russian, but he actually was not Russian. He was Canadian.
yep.
Ivan Koloff.
Hmm.
Wasn't Stan Stasiak? Wasn't he also Canadian?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he was. But yeah, and when he started wearing the wrestling boots with the toe curled up,
Yeah.
which I always thought that was some of the coolest looking boots. And I'm also
Yeah.
thinking, man, you could kick somebody and just seriously
Oh
cut
yeah.
them. Uh,
Um, Xavier Woods did a nod to that because he had some boots
I think he
that had
still wears
the
them,
toes
doesn't
curls.
he?
He might. I haven't seen. He hadn't been on TV in a while. So
I was sitting there looking on yeah, even the Funko Pop here with the trombone, it's got the curled up boots.
that's awesome.
Yep. So I don't know how those old those Funko Pops are, but um, yeah, as you can see, New Day's watching us. Are part of
Hmm.
the
Yep.
wrestling corner over here. Um, but when was the first time you remember seeing or hearing of the Iron Sheik?
When Hogan beat him for the title.
Okay. Um, for me, because I know you actually started watching wrestling a few years before I
Hmm.
did. For me, it wasn't until I started reading the magazines,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, I had to go back because that's the first I'd heard of him. So I went back and read magazines and you know different things to find out more about him. But yeah, that's the first time I remember hearing about him was when hearing that he was WWF champion and Hogan beat him for the title.
and I did. I was like, I don't know who this Iron Sheik guy is, but apparently he's a bad guy. And he, when I first heard of him, he was actually in the middle of the feud with Sergeant Slaughter,
Hmm.
because Slaughter was a bad guy first, and him and the Sheik, and they've done this a couple times. You really don't see it much anymore, just because the ring entrances are a lot different.
Yeah.
Slaughter's leaving, or Sheik, one of them's leaving the ring as the other one's coming in,
Hmm.
and they had the whole thing in the aisleway. They won't move out of the way for each other, so finally one of them slugs the other one.
Yeah.
Slaughter turns face. So, um, and so that was when I first got it. And to me, because like I said, it was a sign of time, or the atmosphere at the time where they had that. It was Slaughter, the Marine, going against the
Yep.
Iranian villain who's saying he
Yep.
doesn't like America or Marines.
Yeah.
And so um, so that was my first time I ever heard of him. And then I'd heard of the camel clutch, and I had seen pictures of other wrestlers
Hmm.
doing it. In fact, Rick Rude is actually one of the ones I saw doing the camel clutch on like pictures of it.
Yeah.
But the way the Iron Sheik did it, and he was not the person who came up with it. That actually surprised me when I found that out. It was Rory Guerrero was the first person to ever do the
Oh,
camel
really?
clutch. Yep,
Okay.
and he even named it the camel clutch.
Hmm.
But you would think that somebody who actually has a camel on their tights would have been
Would
the
have come
person
up
to
with it.
come up
Yeah.
with it.
Yep.
But just the way he did it, not every wrestler did it like this. he first pulled their arms up over his legs, then he pulled them back, and so their
And
arms
I
are
mean,
trapped.
and he pulled way back too.
Yeah,
Like,
and so when I saw that, um, for the first time when I was able to actually go to somebody else's house and watch
hmm
WWF wrestling because they had a great big satellite dish and I didn't even have cable,
right.
so I was able to see that and I was like, oh, ow, I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, that would hurt. And then you find out that um Hogan actually broke out of it.
hmm
And yeah, but I was also thinking this is, still a former WWF champion, so he must have been really
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
so even in the days before I found out the nature of wrestling and how it is, um, I was always thinking if somebody was a former champion, this way it was back then. Now, like over half the roster is a former world champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watering down the titles. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
when
It used to mean something when somebody became a world champion
Mhm.
because it was few and far between. Now it's like, like you said, it's like half the rosters former world champions, and it's like, nah.
Yeah, and don't even get me started on the other belts because then they have even more changes.
Yeah.
Although I do like, I don't know if you read that apparently they are going to be giving Gunther, the nod as far as beating Honky Tonk Man.
I saw that and I'm quite happy about that.
Yep, same here. Because Gunther, he looks like a champion. He carries himself like a champion.
Hmm
You know, I mean, well, granted, he looks like a gym teacher. Also, but at the same time, he looks like somebody who is not to be trifled with.
hmm Yep.
Honky Tonk Man didn't. He looked like a goof. I thought he always looked like a
Um,
goof.
yeah, he was just good. There was nothing intimidating about the honky tonk man. It was he was a joke. That's it. I mean, I didn't, if he hadn't have been such good friends with Hogan, he would have never got the Intercontinental title. He would have been bottom of the mid card at best.
Hmm.
The only thing he's remembered for is the longest reign of being Intercontinental Champion.
And he shouldn't have had that.
No.
So, but maybe we can do a show about the Honky Tonk Man, some other time.
Yeah.
And especially after Gunther, actually surpasses him. I will be
hmm
celebrating that day. I know everybody's talking about the 1,000 days of reigns, which we
hmm
were talking about the his new belt before we started recording.
hmm
Um, I know you like it. I think it's all right. Just
It's
they're going very
it's
cookie
okay.
cutter.
Yeah, I think it'll grow on me like the new world heavyweight title
I
did. I
do
didn't
like the
like
new
it at
world
first.
heavyweight title though. So
I didn't like it at first, but it's growing on me. But the new belt, I'm fine with it because they kept the same design because I like the current design of
the
the
big the
WWE
big the
Championship.
big two W's in the center.
Yeah.
I,
Um,
I mean, it's not a bad that in itself is not a bad design.
yeah.
You know, um, but the problem is they have about five or six belts that all have that same thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, the women's titles look like that. The Universal title look like that. Now the Undisputed Championship looks like that. Yeah, it's like I get you're a public traded company. I get branding. I understand that. But you could still have that branding on a different style of belt. I mean, your men's mid card belts don't look like that.
Right.
So why do all your world championships do?
Yeah. And unless you actually know which color matches what,
Yeah, and right
then
now that's up in the air because a Raw superstar is the SmackDown Women's Champion, and a SmackDown star is the Raw Women's Champion. So here's the thing: if you've already merged the WWE and Universal titles, and he now has a new belt as undisputed champion, then just do it for the tag titles and the women's title.
Yes.
And then you can
Preach.
still have, you can still have each show having a world champion, you know, and then because here's the problem. The women's division, they've gutted it so much that the roster's not big enough to sustain two world championships.
Nope.
The men's mid card is, and that's not through any fault of the women. That is management gutting the women's division. But if they merged the titles and had one, then it wouldn't matter which brand, because that's the problem with the brand split. But then you do, they did the draft, and it was a legit draft, and they drafted people not thinking, what if this champion gets drafted to a different brand? And then we got to
And
get the belt off him and belt off them and figure out all that. And it's like, if you had an undisputed women's champion and a undisputed tag champion, then you wouldn't have that problem. People wouldn't have to carry, like Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens wouldn't have to carry around two belts apiece,
uh,
because they'd only be one belt for
only be one
each of
belt.
them would have for the tag titles. And bring
And
back the old 80s World Tag Team Championships. Best looking tag titles
all the big
WWE's
square
ever had.
ones.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Best looking tag titles. The only tag titles, for me, they're the best looking tag titles in wrestling. They're number two with the old NWA World
I was,
Tag
I
Team
was going to
titles
say the NWA would
that
have to be it.
yeah, that
Yep.
Tully and Arn had with the blue strap.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the best looking tag titles ever. After that, it's the 80s WWF tag titles.
Yep. Because for some reason, every time I think about those belts, I always think about the Bulldogs when they had them.
Yep. I think about the Bulldogs, Demolition, the Hart Foundation, just, Road Warriors, all these legendary teams. And that was the belt. That was the symbol of greatness for WWS team division. So I wish they'd bring those back. But
Um, and we're talking about the tag teams. Sheik and Volkov,
yeah,
WrestleMania 1, they
WrestleMania
actually,
won. They did it.
yep,
Yep.
they took the belts off of the American Express, which at that
Yep.
time
Barry
was,
Windham and Mike Rotunda.
yep. And then Barry left and Dan Spivey became the other one. And they're like, yeah, it
Yeah.
didn't work as good. Dan Spivey was an awesome wrestler, don't get me wrong. No, but that
Dan Spivey was always a good wrestler, but the problem was every time he got inserted into a team, it fell apart.
which didn't make any
Generally
sense, but
because he would leave.
yeah.
That was a lot of the thing. Like he would, for one reason or another, he would leave. Like Barry Windham left and was replaced by Dan Spivey. Then Dan Spivey left, and that team fell apart. He was in the varsity club in
Hmm.
the NWA. He ended up leaving. Of course, that didn't mess up the group so much as it messed up him and Kevin Sullivan's United States tag title reign.
Mm.
But they still had Dr. Death and Mike Rotunda, so who were the world tag team champions at the time. So they were okay. He was half of the skyscrapers with uh, Mean Mark, who ended up being the Undertaker. Dan Spivey ends up leaving, and of course they get Sid in, which I felt Sid was a better replacement anyway. So
Um, and don't forget, Dan Spivey, even before all those, he was part of the American Starship with Scott Hall,
mm-hmm. Yep.
Starship Eagle and Starship Coyote.
Yep. And he was
And
also Waylon Mercy, who was
yep,
the precursor to Bray Wyatt.
yep. Except for Waylon Mercy just didn't work as well. But
No, here's the problem. The vignettes were good. I
yeah,
enjoyed the vignettes. But once he hit the ring, it was like, nah.
from what I read
Because
by that, he was battling a lot of injuries, and so he wasn't
yeah,
able to
he
do
had
as much.
that, and they just fed him enhancement talent. He never
Yeah.
wrestled anybody. He never had a good program with a top star. He always wrestled enhancement talent. Then he got another injury and was gone. So,
Oh, but yeah, the Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, who was
hmm
also not Russian. He was actually Croatian. I just wanted to throw that in there. Um, but they were the tag team champions. Did they was it just once or did they hold it twice?
I think just once.
Okay. Um, because I remember watching them as a team going, you know what, they're pretty tough. And
Hmm.
then of course then the
I'm trying
Sheik
to remember who they lost him to.
um
Let me see.
wasn't the Bulldogs because the Bulldogs beat the Hart Foundation at WrestleMania 2. That's going to drive me nuts now. Who did the Hart Foundation beat?
Uh, that's the thing. I don't know because I know I can't see them because they were heels at the time, so I can't see them. Um,
I'm looking for right now. He was also in Cyndi Lauper's video for Goonies Are Good Enough. Um, it doesn't. Okay, it says they beat the U.S. Express, not the American Express. That's right,
hmm.
because they were trying to call them American Express, but they got sued.
Oh yeah, yeah. Credit card company was
um,
like, no, I don't think so.
hmm, just like they were trying to say the Incredible Hulk Hogan, and they also got sued. Um,
Yeah, yeah, because Marvel wasn't having that. So
it doesn't say who they lost them to.
I know that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah, you whoever wrote this article, you suck. All right, let me just look up the.
Uh, they lost him back to Rotunda and Wyndham three
Oh,
months
really?
later. Yeah,
Oh,
they held him for 3 months, lost him to Rotunda and Wyndham. Wyndham and Rotunda lost him to the Hart Foundation. Hart Foundation lost him to the Bulldogs.
well, see, that was back when you could actually track those things,
Yeah, yeah.
easily.
Well, yeah, because the reigns were at least, you know, 3, 4 months, if not
Yeah,
more. It's like when they hot shot it like every 2 weeks, it's hard to keep up.
I mean, the only reason that anybody ever got hot shotted back then, well, the transition champion. Okay,
Hmm.
you have a longtime champion, and then a buffer, and then another longtime
Another
champion.
longtime champion. Yeah,
So, but that also showed, hey, they can lose it,
yeah, yeah.
on any night. Now, you don't want to always have them lose it on any night, but another one of the interesting things about when the Sheik when he lost it to Hogan, and I know you've read this, and Greg Gagne has disputed this, but according to the Iron Sheik, Vern Gagne contacted him and said he would pay the Sheik $100,000 if he would break Hogan's
Break
leg,
Hogan's back. Oh, break his leg.
break
I
his
thought I'd
leg,
read somewhere that it would break his back, but
and then return to the AWA with the WWF title, which would have been kind of amazing because it had been an early version of like what Medusa did or
hmm.
Alundra Blaze, what she did, of course,
Yep.
decade and a half later. And, cause it makes me wonder, I think somebody else had to have done that at some point, but, um,
Yeah.
like for real, because things like that used to happen.
Oh
Um,
yeah, definitely.
but because this is when Vince was slowly killing the territories, he's buying up all
Hmm.
the good
Yep.
ones, and Vern was trying to fight him on it. And
Yeah, AWA was dying, and
yep, this is what was getting ready to start um, their slow death, and because
yep,
man, the AWA took a long time to die.
it
Uh,
did.
but
It really did. I mean, they
uh,
drug on. They drug on a lot longer than I thought they would at the end.
yeah, to the point where some of the people they had as champion, you're like, "Mm, really? Kurt
Yeah.
Hennig was okay. Kurt Hennig was fine. Larry Zbyszko, he was way past his prime by that point.
Yeah.
And nothing against him because I mean he headlined one of the biggest super cards ever
Hmm.
against Bruno. So I mean at one point I mean he was top
I was
dog.
never. I was never a fan of Larry Zbyszko in the ring. Promo work,
Yeah,
great talker. Was never a fan of his in ring work except for when he teamed with Arn Anderson. of course, it's Arn Anderson who's going to bring the best out of it. He's going to make everybody else look good around him.
Yep.
And him and Arn as the enforcers were a great tag team.
And of course, he was part of the 20-man battle royal at WrestleMania 2. By the way, he also won the very first battle royal they had at Madison Square Garden. Iron Sheik was the first winner of that. I
Oh
guess it
wow.
was an annual thing for a bit. Yeah. So WrestleMania 2, of course, he was in a battle royal there. He was his number 13 that was thrown out. He was thrown out by
Hmm.
Bruno. And then in May of 1987, and I remember when this one had happened because I was already starting to question some things. And when he was feuding against Hacksaw Duggan. And of course, we
Hmm.
know Hacksaw Duggan. His gimmick for 40 years now has
Yeah.
been the same thing. But you know what? He's still getting paid for it, so
Oh yeah.
run with it. And I'd love to have him on the show. If anybody knows him, send him our way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
unless he costs too much, then we'll just say hi to him and
Yeah. Yeah.
but I've also heard he's actually a super nice guy too. So, um,
Yeah. I've heard that too.
but when I heard the news that Hacksaw Duggan and the Iron Sheik were arrested together,
Yeah.
you know, because they were riding in a car together. Because Hacksaw Duggan, because first, I mean, Hacksaw Duggan, he's supposed to, even though he has a beard and he kind of looks like
Mm.
a lumberjack in a way,
Yeah.
a lumberjack without the plaid. And he's driving down the road, drinking a beer as he's driving by a state trooper.
Yeah.
Not the smartest thing in the world to do.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So Trooper pulls him over, and this is on like the New Jersey Turnpike, and pulls him over, of course, because he's drinking a beer.
Hmm.
He sees roaches in the ashtray, and for those who are thinking that we're talking about the little brown little scary bug that'll get in your cereal, if you have a roach infestation, that may or may not have happened to me when I was a kid.
Oh crap.
Yeah, yeah, not the funnest thing in the world, I will tell you that.
Nah.
But so not those kind of roaches. We're talking like what's left of a marijuana cigarette, just to
Hmm.
get
Yep.
the nice. It's what's left, and apparently, if you stick like a wire through it, you can still salvage what's
Yeah.
left or
Yeah.
whatever. Cop sees that in the ashtray. They're rental cars. That's
Hmm.
what it was, in a rental car, and so he does a search. By the way, Hacksaw was also high because he had been smoking. He was the one smoking the joints for that.
Yeah.
The Sheik was also high, but not on. You
Yeah.
know, he had been. I'm not saying that he liked cocaine, but he liked the way it smelled.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
apparently
A
that
whole
that
lot.
day, yeah, he liked it a lot. So he was high, and he actually had the cocaine in his possession. So the
Hmm.
cocaine was his. Um, and of course they get arrested. They both get charged with let's see, Hacksaw with the open container, driving while impaired, possession
Hmm.
of all the weed. Cheek, the possession of weed and cocaine, which cocaine is one of the things that they will slam you hard for that.
Yeah.
Even now they will. You know, weed they'll just take it if you're in a state that it's not legal. They'll just take it
Hmm.
from you. Cocaine, no, they will put you in jail.
Yeah.
So um, so Hacksaw, he's released a little bit earlier than Sheik was. They, of course, Vince finds out because how wouldn't he?
Hmm.
Hacksaw is released, and he comes back a few months later. But the Sheik, he's released. He doesn't come back until he has changed his name to Colonel Mustafa, and he's part of Sergeant Slaughter's crew when he turned heel.
Hmm.
And it wasn't because of all the drugs. It was because it was a face and a heel traveling together.
Yeah. Yeah. It was breaking kayfabe. That's back when kayfabe was in full effect, and you know Bad guy fans were not supposed to see heels and faces fraternizing, and they got caught, and it was all over the news. And yeah, Vince was not pleased at all.
Nope. And so I don't know if you've ever watched the documentary about Iron Sheik. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
um, and he talks about it and how he was left. And by the way, it's kind of funny how his character, he always portrayed himself as like hating America and Americans.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, he actually was
Oh
like
yeah.
complete opposite of his character.
Yeah.
His wife he met in Minnesota, and of course they were married. What did the thing say for 37 years when he passed?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, maybe
Yep.
longer than that. You know what? I'll have
I'm
to.
trying to think. Let's see. Uh, it's go back.
Uh, I'm going to look, and
47.
40. Okay, I
Yeah,
was right.
he got married in 1976 and was married to her until he passed, until today.
And I had read somewhere a long time ago that he had actually become a Christian, but no, he was a Shia Muslim.
Hmm.
So whoever wrote that, yeah, they were wrong. But
Yeah.
when he got married, his best man was Mean Gene Okerlund, who the Sheik actually used to call him Gene Mean.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I do remember reading about this, one of the most unfortunate things to ever happen to a parent. When his eldest daughter Marissa she was murdered by her boyfriend
Oh
when
God.
she was only 26 years old.
That's awful.
Yeah, and he by that point he had developed a really bad drug habit, and when that happened, it just pushed him even
Yeah.
further. Because during the documentary, they actually show. I mean, he had smoked some crack, and he was on camera, um, and I think she had actually left him for a bit. His wife had,
Hmm.
until he was able to. Um,
Get himself cleaned
yeah,
up.
oh, there it is. Yeah, she walked out, and then she returned 2 years later on the condition that he sever ties with a friend who helped him acquire all the drugs. And so, 2013, he said he'd been off cocaine for 4 years. Um,
Oh, okay. That's good.
so, yep. So the documentary came out in 2014. So but ah, okay. I had a feeling about this. About now, I'm pretty sure he told them what to put on the tweets, but he didn't always write the tweets himself. And
Oh,
so,
okay.
because I noticed after he had died, there was a tweet that came out on his account. It said "Rest in
Hmm.
peace,"
Yeah.
and so I have a feeling they're probably not going to do the um the his famous tweets. Yeah, I mean we'll have to see, but
Yeah.
I don't think it would be as funny if he's no
No,
longer
it wouldn't
here.
be as funny since he's gone. It wouldn't be nearly as funny as it was.
Yeah. So, but that was one of the wildest things. Somebody, I don't think he was ever voted the most hated wrestler, like by
Hmm.
PWI, but I'm quite sure he was probably like one of the runner-ups.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it's just amazing to think that somebody who was so hated in the ring
Hmm.
that before he died, he became one of the most popular,
Oh yeah.
people outside the ring. And, because his speech when he was elected to the Hall of Fame in was it 2005, right?
I believe so. Let's see. Hold on. Let me check. I saw it somewhere just a minute ago. Yeah, 2005.
Yep, 2005. And but one of the best speeches ever. And that's what kind of kicked off that, where all of a sudden he was just in demand. People want him on the
Hmm.
shows. He was on the Howard Stern show. He was doing these other
Yeah.
things because he was just so entertaining with that. Because
Yeah.
he was just being himself.
Yeah. That's and
And
that's the great thing. It's like he didn't have to play a character anymore. He could just be himself, and people
yeah,
loved it.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, because he was kind of a fun guy,
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, he did have his drug issues because of
Mm-hmm.
things that had happened. Everybody deals with stuff in their own way.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I mean, I would never recommend anybody turn to drugs to kind of hide the pain, mask the pain, and
No.
and that includes alcohol as well.
Mm-hmm.
You and I both know about that. We've been very open about
Yep.
that, and because and I'll say it just with alcohol, okay, yeah, you're escaping for a short while.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow, guess what? The problem's still going to be there, and now you're hungover on
Exactly.
top of it.
Yep. And now you've created another problem to go along with the problem you were trying to escape in the first place.
Exactly. So, um, but and I imagine not just that losing his daughter, but the manner in which he lost his daughter.
Yeah.
That had to been, um, I don't think horrible begins to scratch the surface of it.
Mm-mm. No.
You know, but he has two surviving daughters and
Mm-hmm.
five grandchildren.
Awesome.
So and his tweets, especially the ones about Hulk Hogan, which we can't repeat all of them on the air, because we've decided a long time ago to be family friendly with the language, and
Hmm.
some of his tweets, I think the cleanest word we could say is probably Hulk Hogan.
Probably,
So,
probably, or jabroni. He was a
or
big fan of using the
jabroni.
word jabroni.
And where do you think Iron Sheik's legacy is going to lie? You think it'll be the one of the greatest heel wrestlers of all time, one of the most hated, which meant he was doing his job really well. That's what Tully Blanchard told me when I told him I hated him as a kid. And I
Hmm.
actually said
He's
this
like
with
that.
I
I was
said,
doing my
yeah,
job.
yeah. And I actually told him, I said, I mean this as a compliment. I absolutely hated you as a kid. And he's like, and he was smiling. He said, that means I was doing my job really well. And I was like, yes, you were.
Hmm.
So the Iron Sheik was hated, and he was one of the most hated, which meant he was doing his job really well.
Hmm.
Because he would, USA Hawk Tui, and he would do the
Yeah.
Hawk Tui, just like you
Yeah.
would read like in a comic book. They would
Hmm.
always say Hawk
Yep.
Tui,
Yeah.
you know. But his legacy would be known as that. A former WWF champion, former WWF tag team champion, along with Nikolai Volkov. Um, I try to forget the whole thing about him, Colonel Mustafa, but you know what? He was getting paid. Can't hate the
Yeah.
man for that.
Nah.
You know, his version of the camel clutch, which, like you said, I mean, he pulled people way,
I
way
mean
back.
the only person I've seen do it nearly as good as him was Rusev.
Yeah, yeah. Rusev did the same way. He would pull him up and
Yeah.
he'd just yank him
Yeah.
back.
Just almost bend him in half, and it's like that's impressive.
Yeah, or will it become his legacy? The way he was the past decade, decade and a half, where he became this personality outside the ring that was one of the funniest, most popular, people out there because of his social media, because of his radio show appearances.
I think for older fans like us, his legacy is still going to lie in being former world champion, former world tag team champion, one of the best heels ever. I think for younger fans, the social, of the social media age, I think his legacy will be his Twitter account and just his Twitter account, his appearances on different, radio shows and things, just his popularity and personality coming through. I think for the younger crowd, I think that's going to be his legacy.
And we didn't even really touch on the stuff he did uh, before his run in the WWF when he was actually in Georgia. That's where he had retired to, and he loved Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, he was in Florida for a little bit. He was in Mid South for a little bit. And we're talking like a cup of coffee. We're talking like the Freebird type of tenure where they would show up, do a little bit, and
Yeah. Yeah.
because I mean he won titles, here and there, but nothing like
Mm-hmm.
his run in the WWF, which made him just this megastar, um, world champion, Hall of Famer, and then he won the WrestleMania X7, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
X7 the
the
gimmick battle
gimmick
royal.
battle.
Yep.
Now, granted, the reason why he won it was because his knees were shot,
Oh yeah,
and
and yeah, he couldn't get thrown out of the ring.
yeah, and
So
so that was the battle royal where the entrances took longer than the battle royal itself.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but he threw out. I don't remember who he threw out at the very end,
I can't remember.
but Sergeant Slaughter came in and put him in the Cobra Clutch.
Hmm.
And for the old school fans, we're like,
Yep,
"Yep." But Khosrow Vaziri, rest in peace, the Iron Sheik.
absolutely.
Thank you, Bubba, for all the good memories we had, even if we were booing you. Well, I was booing you.
Yeah, yeah.
Dwaylen probably wasn't because Dwaylen was kind of like Ted the Hillbilly Hill. He loved himself some heels.
I did. I always liked the heels. Uh, you can call me a bad guy, but I always liked them.
And that's why he likes Batman.
Yeah, there you go.
Because Batman, he's
Yeah,
kind of like that. And not Superman, because Superman was, you know,
yeah. It's just,
two white meat baby face.
yeah. There, that's it.
So
Yeah.
Batman, he's just waiting to turn heel.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you
He's
think
just he's
Batman?
just hanging on. Yeah.
Yeah, bank robbery's happening. You think Batman's there to save you? No, he's getting his share. He's going to show up one day and just no, I'm taking the rest of this.
Yes.
So
Like you know how
uh,
expensive all this equipment is. It's like I
yeah,
gotta have more money.
yeah. There's this guy Bruce Wayne. He's wanting all this money. Y'all don't get it.
Yeah.
So uh, but like I said, rest in peace to the Iron Sheik. Um, yeah, not the best news to hear.
No.
But at the same time, I mean, he led a very interesting life. He had good times, he had bad times, peaks and valleys, just like all of us.
Hmm.
Um, except for he did his, in the public eye,
Yeah.
and and I enjoyed it. Him in the
Yeah.
ring and out of the ring.
Yep.
So
Same here.
uh, but um, we may or may not record tomorrow. We haven't even decided on that. It just kind
Yeah.
of
Not sure
depends
yet.
on. Not
Kind of
sure.
depends
Like
on
I
life.
said, yeah, because like I said, I have an exam I'll be taking tomorrow afternoon, and the exam place is a good hour away from my house. And
Hmm.
afterwards, as long as I pass, which hopefully I will,
Hmm.
um, if the office that I'm going to be working with, if they're still open, I will go over there and get my fingerprints made because that's actually something else. This is an official
Okay.
thing. I'll be licensed, in the state of Ohio to do this, which means I have to have my fingerprints on file.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yep, and it has to be them doing the fingerprints. It's I was like, why
Hmm.
can't I've had other investigations done. Why can't you? Nobody talks to
Yeah.
each other,
No,
but
they don't.
no, so um, so it kind of depends on how all that goes. Um, and we might be recording this weekend. Yeah, I sent you
Yep.
that message across Basic
Hmm.
Messenger. So,
I saw that. Yeah.
we working this out. We may have. I don't want. We'll just call it a bonus episode. And we're very, for us, it's going to be a treat if we can have
Yeah.
uh guys from Finisher Wrestling on. So, by the way, they just had a very interesting episode. I meant to say this earlier, where they posed the question, and I'm very surprised that we've never posed this question.
Hmm.
What if WCW had won the war?
I've seen that on Twitter before. People
Yeah,
asking that question. That is very, yeah.
they actually discussed it.
Hmm.
Because it makes you wonder. It's like, well, somebody had to. No, I don't think anybody really has actually discussed it. It's always been a
No,
Twitter
yeah,
thread, but not an actual
yeah,
podcast thing. So,
yeah.
but yeah, go check those guys out, and hopefully, we will. You can check them out on our show, and then we can get on their shows. So,
Hmm.
but until we can talk again, my friend, I just have to say good night and God bless.
God bless.